The soft hum of my laptop filled the corner office as sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the room in gold. I adjusted the silk blouse I had carefully chosen this morning, cream, with a subtle sheen that caught the light, and sipped my coffee, letting the bitter warmth steady my racing thoughts. Everything looked perfect. The artwork I'd collected over the years, the polished mahogany desk, the sleek city skyline outside. Yet, beneath the calm surface, a storm was quietly brewing in my mind. Then my phone buzzed. A name flashed on the screen, Mom. My fingers froze mid-scroll, and for a moment, I debated ignoring it. After all, it had been years since they truly believed in me. Years since they mocked my small job, the one they thought would lead nowhere. But I answered. The voice on the other end was deceptively casual, almost cheerful, yet there was an edge I couldn't miss. They were coming to town, unexpectedly, and they wanted to catch up. My chest tightened. The thought of seeing them, of hearing their condescending tone again, stirred memories I had tried to bury. I leaned back in my chair, letting the smooth leather cradle me, and let a small, ironic smile curl on my lips. They had no idea what they were about to walk into. Not a single clue. I had kept my life hidden for years, quietly building, quietly winning. And now, the past and the present were about to collide. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was 24, standing in the cramped kitchen of my parents' suburban home, the scent of burnt toast and stale coffee hanging in the air. My mom had just laughed, that sharp, dismissive laugh I knew all too well. A small job? Really, Emma? That's what you're proud of? Her words stung worse than any slap could. My dad didn't even look up from his newspaper, nodding in quiet agreement, his eyes saying exactly what he couldn't be bothered to voice. My hands shook slightly as I held the envelope containing my first paycheck from the job they mocked. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I had earned every cent through late nights and relentless determination, yet their disdain made it feel worthless. I bit back tears, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, but the words caught somewhere between pride and fear. It was then that Grandma's words came to mind, her wisdom, wrapped in soft warmth. Don't let their disbelief define you, Emma. Sometimes the world sees what others cannot. Keep your head high and your hands busy. One day, they'll understand. She had pressed a small, gold-plated compass into my palm that morning, telling me it would guide me when I lost my way. I had laughed, thinking it was silly, but that tiny token became my talisman, my quiet reminder that my path was mine alone. That night, after they went to bed, I sat on my tiny apartment balcony, the city lights blinking like distant promises. I made a decision. I would prove myself, not for them, not for approval, but for me. I would take their mockery and use it as fuel. Every dismissive glance, every sarcastic remark, every laugh would become a stepping stone. I whispered to myself under the cool night sky, "I'll show you. You'll see who I really am." From that moment on, I began plotting my escape from their narrow expectations. I wasn't just chasing a paycheck anymore. I was chasing independence, growth, and the quiet satisfaction of success that no one could take away. And though they didn't realize it yet, their words had lit a fire that would one day blaze beyond their comprehension. I threw myself into my work with a hunger that scared even me. The small job my parents had mocked became my laboratory, my proving ground. I worked late into the night, often long after the office lights dimmed, the soft glow of my desk lamp illuminating spreadsheets, proposals, and countless rejected drafts. Every failure stung, but each one sharpened me, molding me into someone who refused to stay small. It was during one of those long nights that I met Mr. Callahan, a seasoned entrepreneur who recognized ambition when he saw it. He wasn't impressed by my job or my paycheck. He saw the fire behind my eyes. "You have the drive, Emma. But you need strategy," he told me one evening over lukewarm coffee in a dimly lit diner. "Learn the rules, master them, and no one will ever underestimate you again." I nodded, taking his advice to heart. He became my mentor, my guide through the maze of business, teaching me to read contracts, negotiate with confidence, and recognize opportunities even in the most unlikely places. The early days were brutal. I juggled multiple freelance projects, teaching myself skills I had never imagined needing: marketing, finance, client management. There were nights I cried over spreadsheets, questioning whether I was cut out for this world. But the memory of their laughter, the sting of their mockery, kept me going. With each small win, a client who paid on time, a project that exceeded expectations, I felt a flicker of pride. It was modest, almost imperceptible, but it was mine. I learned to move quietly, deliberately. I kept my growing success hidden from my parents, posting vague social media updates about busy work while secretly landing contracts that would eventually multiply into six-figure ventures. I invested, I saved, I expanded. My small beginnings transformed into multiple streams of income, and slowly, without fanfare, I built a life that could stand independent of their judgment. There were moments of loneliness, though, when I longed for recognition or support, but I reminded myself that validation from anyone else was unnecessary. I had learned to derive strength from within, to relish the thrill of secret victories. And in that quiet, private triumph, I discovered something even more powerful than money: control over my destiny. By the time I was 30, my portfolio included stakes in businesses I had nurtured from scratch. I had turned what they called a small job into a stepping stone for financial freedom, and I had done it all quietly, almost invisibly. My parents still assumed I was struggling, working jobs that barely paid rent. But I knew better. And soon, they would see exactly how wrong they had been. The day they walked into my office, I felt a strange mixture of nerves and anticipation. My parents, expecting a timid, struggling daughter, stepped into a space that reflected years of quiet triumph. The walls were lined with abstract art I had collected during travels, each piece a memory, a milestone. My desk gleamed with polished walnut, and behind it, a sleek cityscape framed by the tall windows reminded them, and perhaps me, of just how far I had come. "Emma?" My mom's voice wavered slightly as she stepped forward, scanning the room as if trying to reconcile this reality with the one she had imagined for me. My dad's mouth was slightly open, eyes wide, betraying the shock he struggled to mask. I stood from behind my desk, letting them take in the scene, savoring the moment of silence that spoke louder than any words. Every detail was intentional: the understated luxury, the sense of calm control, the small trophies of achievement scattered across the office. I let them breathe it in, every second a gentle hammer, reminding them that their assumptions had been wrong. Finally, I spoke. "You always thought my small job was insignificant," I said, voice steady, measured, confident. "You laughed at it, mocked it, and made me feel like nothing I did would ever matter. But that job, it was the start of everything." I watched their faces, reading disbelief and a creeping guilt in equal measure. "I took what you mocked, what you dismissed, and I built from it. I learned. I worked nights when I could barely keep my eyes open. I made mistakes. I grew. And now," I paused, letting the moment linger like the hush before a storm breaks. "I'm the CEO of the company that employs your boss, Dad. And Mom," I smiled, though there was steel behind it, "I just froze the $480,000 credit line on your accounts until certain conditions are met." They blinked. My dad's hand trembled slightly as he gripped the arm of the chair. My mom looked like she might collapse, the color drained from her face. I didn't rush to explain. The silence did my work for me. Every detail of the room, every word, every pause reinforced the truth. I was no longer the girl they had dismissed. I was someone who had turned their doubt into power. "This isn't about revenge," I continued, my tone softening, just slightly. "It's about accountability. About showing that words have weight. About proving that the person you underestimated isn't small at all." They swallowed, looking down at their shoes, then up at me again. That mixture of shame and astonishment, the recognition that the child they had mocked had become their superior, was priceless. And for the first time in years, I felt fully seen, not by their approval, but by the undeniable reality of what I had created. They had expected weakness. What they found instead was strength, vision, and independence. And I intended to make sure they understood that strength on my terms. I let the weight of the moment settle over them, watching their expressions shift from disbelief to apprehension. The power dynamic had changed. I was no longer the daughter they could dismiss. Now, every word I spoke carried authority, and they had no choice but to listen. "I'm not cruel," I began, keeping my voice calm yet firm. "But if we're going to move forward, things need to change. The patterns that hurt me in the past, dismissiveness, ridicule, underestimating others, those have to end. And yes, that includes the reckless spending and overextended credit that I just froze, Mom and Dad." My mom's eyes welled up, and my dad shifted uncomfortably, but I continued. "Here's what I want. First, honesty. No more hiding behind appearances or dismissing people's efforts. Second, self-improvement. Find something that challenges you, something that requires effort, humility, and growth. Third, respect, both for me and for yourselves. If you can commit to that, the funds I froze will be reinstated, under careful conditions, of course. You'll need to provide a clear plan and demonstrate that you've changed." I could see the mix of fear and realization on their faces. It was clear they had never been held accountable like this before, and that accountability was necessary. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was offering a chance for redemption, growth, and a healthier relationship, but only on my terms. Then I added the final piece, the ultimate lesson I had learned along the way. Life isn't about waiting for recognition or approval. It's about taking responsibility, seizing opportunities, and turning setbacks into victories. You mocked me once, now you see what can happen when someone refuses to be small. Learn from it, and maybe someday you'll understand what real growth feels like. The room was quiet, heavy with the gravity of my words. And yet, beneath that tension, there was a faint glimmer of hope, the realization that change was possible if they chose it. I had shifted the balance of power without raising my voice, without threats, but with unwavering confidence. I had become the architect of my life and, in a way, the catalyst for theirs too. By the time the meeting ended, it was clear. I had the upper hand, not out of anger, but because I had built something worth respecting. They would comply, they would reflect, and they would grow, or not, but I was done being small in anyone's eyes. And the best part? I knew that my strength had been forged long before they ever understood it, and no amount of doubt could ever take it away. Weeks passed, and I watched subtle changes ripple through my parents' lives. My mom enrolled in a financial planning course, her brow furrowed in concentration as she learned to manage her accounts responsibly. My dad began volunteering at a local community center, discovering satisfaction in mentoring young entrepreneurs. It wasn't dramatic and it wasn't immediate, but it was progress, and that was enough. I, too, reflected on the journey that had brought me here. From the trembling young woman clutching her first paycheck in the kitchen to the confident, self-assured CEO who now controlled not only her own destiny, but also the levers that had once seemed unreachable. I had come far. Every doubt they had cast upon me, every dismissive remark, had fueled the fire that built this life. And through it all, I had learned that true power wasn't about retaliation. It was about mastery over oneself, resilience, and grace under pressure. I picked up the small gold compass Grandma had given me years ago, tracing its edges as memories of her wisdom came rushing back. "Keep your head high and your hands busy," she had said. That tiny object had guided me, reminding me to stay focused on my own path even when the world doubted me. Now, holding it again, I realized it symbolized not just guidance, but triumph, the journey from mockery to mastery, from invisibility to undeniable presence. Sitting at my desk, I allowed myself a quiet smile. I had won in ways I hadn't even imagined back then, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. I had proven to myself that the person who refused to be small would always find a way to rise, no matter the obstacles. And in that quiet reflection, I knew one truth: success without integrity and without self-respect was meaningless. I had both, and nothing could ever take them away. My parents had learned their lesson, yes, but more importantly, I had learned mine. I had become the woman I was always meant to be, strong, independent, and unstoppable. The city lights outside flickered in the twilight, casting long shadows across my office, and I whispered softly to myself, a final affirmation of the journey I had walked alone and now proudly shared. I am Emma Rivers, and I will never be small in anyone's eyes again. Bottom of form.